there, welcome to Wisq Crafts. Let's make a little roller skate. All you need is your crochet hook, scissors, and different colored yarn for each part of the skate. So here is what I'll be using for the plates and bearings, the wheels, and the boots. I just chose 3 colors, but I'll choose other colors for the laces later. So let's start with the plate first, or the sole of the boot. It's just gonna look like a little shoe before we turn it into a roller skate. So we start with a slip stitch, and then we just start to chain until we have an approximate length of how big or how long the shoe will be. But this is just going to be a little smaller than it'll actually be, because we're going to add layers or rows of stitches. So let's do our first row, which would be a single stitch. This is our single stitch row. Just finish the whole length of it, and then we'll be moving on to going all around. It's like we're making an oval at first. So now that we're at the end of our single stitch row, here's how I make the oval. I just do 3 single stitches into one stitch, into that last stitch at the end. That's where I put my 3 single stitches, and you see, by putting 3 single stitches in one stitch, it takes you around to the other side, where you just carry on single stitching for the length of this. And then you do the same thing when you get to the other end. You keep doing that for several rows or several rounds, and you can stop and take a look at what you've done so far, and you'll see that it looks like a little foot or a footprint. So when you're happy with that, that's good enough. But since when you're just going single stitching all around, it looks more like an oval, I'm going to show you a little trick for how to make it look more like a footprint or the sole of a shoe. So here it's like a long oval now, right? So what I do is I start to double stitch and half double stitch accordingly to add some more width to make it look like a foot or a footprint. So here's a half double, just to transition from the single, and now here's a full-on double stitch just to get a little more width. Let's do a couple more of that before we go back to a double stitch, just to transition to a single stitch. So we're increasing and decreasing in width accordingly, and you'll see in a little bit that this is what makes it look more like a footprint. So I did a few full-on double stitches. It's up to you how big you're making this roller skate, so that the size of it depends on the sole, of course, or the plate, whatever you choose to call it. Now I'm pretty happy with this, so that's enough. Double stitches, let's do a half double, transition to single, and carry on single stitching from there. Just continue. Now it already looks like a footprint, so I'm just going to go all around and around, do more rows or rounds until it's big enough for me. Now if you're making this for a baby, I recommend that you don't make it for a baby or toddler that already knows how to walk, because they could be wearing it and then you just look away for a second, they'll try to walk and then they could slip. So just for babies that don't walk, I would recommend. Or you could make this for a keychain or any kind of charm, something like that. Now here it is. Here's my finished sole or plate for the roller skate. Now to start making the boot or the shoe part, let's just slip the hook in horizontally between one whole stitch. Goes in one stitch, comes out the other. See, it's like you're about to do a running stitch with a needle, but you're not. We're just going to start crocheting half doubles now. We're going to do just one row of half double stitches, because it looks smoother when you just carry on single stitching after this first row of double stitch. I just think the double stitch is a good transition from the sole, but once you get past this first row, single stitch looks much smoother Now let me speed this up for you. Here I am at the end of the double stitch, still doing it horizontally like I showed you. Let's just close it up so we can go back to single stitching the rest of it. So here is the end of the first and the only double stitch row you'll be doing for the boot part. Okay, so let's just single stitch from here and speed it up. You can see now it's already starting to look like a little shoe from here. So let's flip that over and just keep going around with our single stitches. This will bring us up. This will make it longer until we get to the top and it looks like a boot. Right now it looks like a little flat shoe. And so with it just starting to look like a little shoe, that's not enough. You need to do a lot of single stitch rows until it actually looks like a shoe. And that's up to you how many, because it depends how big you want this to be. But when you get to that point that it looks like an actual flat shoe, you start doing one more row of single stitches till you get to the front of the shoe, and where the laces should start, that's where you start to reverse. So let's speed it up. Let's just go to that end. So I'm here at the end where the laces should start. Before I reverse, I'm just going to do one more row in the front where the toes are for more toe coverage. I'm doing a row of double stitches and half doubles, but it depends on you. Half doubles are just a little tighter. You can do double stitches too if you don't crochet too loose. I always struggle with these stitches when I'm on camera. Sorry about that. Here we are almost at the other end. When you get to that end, you do another row of single stitches, and then when you reach the front again, where you started making this extra row of double stitch toe coverage, then you're going to reverse and go back and forth, and that's making the ankle part of the boot, like the part that provides the ankle support. You know what I mean. The trouble with demonstrating this with black yarn is that it's hard for you to see every single stitch I'm doing, so I recommend having your video on full brightness. But all I'm doing is single and double stitching as needed. Just double in the front where the toes are, and then single when I get back to the ankles. So there's the front, the toes are fine. Now I can just single stitch and keep going back and forth from there to raise the height so it starts to look more like a boot. We can fast forward at this point because I think you know what I mean. Here the toe is just fine, looks like a shoe. So let's turn this shoe into a boot. But I know that some roller skates do look like sneakers or shoes instead of boots. That's fine too, but for this one I just prefer to make the boot type because it happens to be the kind of roller skates I have. And when you're done with the boot or the shoe part of the roller skate, let's do a little magic circle here so we can get started on our wheels. I'm using the same color as the sole or plate because this is going to represent the bearings. I choose silver because it's made of metal, just like the plates. So we just do a round of single stitches in this magic circle around our row, whatever you call it. Let's try to keep it really small. Since this is a magic circle, it's perfectly adjustable. You can make it as big or as small as you want. I'm gonna keep this tiny, so just a few single stitches will do. Just one round, one row. And then I pull the tightness, that's the magic part of the magic circle. Pull it tightly and suddenly it's all closed up. And this is the bearing, like I said. And once you're done with your row or two of single stitches to make the bearing, we're going to change color real quick for the wheel. I chose a different color for the wheel, of course, from the boot, but it's up to you if you want everything to be a uniform color, want it to be super colorful, or I think the best thing to do is to copy the roller skates you might have. Maybe that's why you're making this, to make a little version of your existing roller skate. Now let's speed this up because I think you get it at this point. It's okay if you need to rewind if that was too fast. I just don't want this video to be too long because, like I said, you can just always rewind to the parts you need to go over again to clarify. But let's move on to changing color now, changing to the color for the wheels. I'm going to do yellow wheels here. So let me just pull some yellow thread or yellow yarn through this little yarn bearing, this little silver bearing. And now I have a single stitch. Let's do one single stitch around and then maybe another because I want it to be wide. I think it's cute to have chubby little wheels. Always a struggle at the end to close it off, but that's okay. So I think that single stitch row is not enough. One more row of single stitches will be just fine. And then we'll do a double stitch after to transition to the back part. Because when it's just a row of single stitches or two, maybe even 3 rows of single stitches, it just kind of looks like a pancake or a bullseye. It's very flat. So transitioning to a double stitch or even a half double will provide that curve, and then you can close it off in the back so it looks like a wheel. So let's do it. I just chain 2 or 3 from there because that's the height of a double or a half double stitch. Then I carry on. I just double stitch a whole round till I get back where I started. A double stitch or a half double will do. I think I'm going to do a half double since what I'm doing is a really small stitch. I don't need that much height. Also, full double stitches tend to be a little loose. I like to crochet tight, so half double is fine here. Now let's just meet at the beginning, close it off, and it looks a little weird now, but wait till you push it in the middle. Now it looks like a wheel. Doesn't that look just like an actual wheel? And there you go. Let's make 3 more of those and we're good. Now I don't need to make 4 wheels on camera for you. You get it. Just rewind the first wheel that I made. Try it on the boot to make sure it's the right size. And to lace up the boot, don't feel like you need to make extra holes or holes for the laces. It's already crochet, so it's made of a bunch of holes. You can just pull through wherever you need them. Now I'm going to make a little toe stop, and I'm going to make it exactly the way that I made the wheel actually. The only difference is I'm going to decrease or tighten at the end of it. Do 1 row of decrease stitches. I'm not even sure if that's what they're really called, but that's what I call them because you're decreasing in size. Okay, let's just do the magic circle like earlier, but this time we're not going to change colors at all since the toe stop will just be one solid color. So let's tighten that, make it nice and tiny. It needs to be much smaller than the wheel so it doesn't look like you just made another wheel in front. Okay, now we're at that pancake phase I told you about. But when you close it off with double stitches and then now decrease stitches, it's going to have a more cone-like shape, just like a toe stop. When you feel like that's tight enough and that's the shape you want, just end it right there, cut the yarn, knot it, whatever, and try it on for size. And when you're happy with the sizing and everything looks just about right, it's time to attach everything. You can just attach those wheels and that toe stop by sewing them down or gluing them. You can also add little designs on the side like I did. Whatever you choose to do and whatever colors you choose to use. I hope that you found my tips helpful. Another tip, like I mentioned earlier, please do not, or I recommend that you do not, gift this to a baby or a toddler that can already walk because for safety reasons they could slip on them if no one's looking, but it's perfectly fine for a small baby that doesn't know how to walk yet. If you're just making this for a keychain or charm or whatever little thing that is not for a child, no worries there. I hope that these tips were helpful and the instructions were easy to follow. Happy crafting!